What's up guys, Ivan Carranza here, and today we're taking a look at the Origin Effects Cali76 Compact Bass. The Compact Bass is the little brother to the Cali76 TX and TXL, and as you can see in the picture here, those were fairly large compressors, but Origin Effects took everything that was good with those and put it in a much smaller enclosure that is pedal friendly. Like the name suggests, the Cali76 compressor is an 1176 FET style compressor, which is not transparent. It definitely adds some flavor, some coloration to the tone, but in a very pleasing way, if I may say so. For the controls, we've got an input knob, which lets you dial in the amount of signal or gain going into the compressor, as well as when your signal is going to meet or match the threshold. So that lets you dial in how much compression is going to kick in as well. Then we've got the output knob, which controls the amount of volume going out of the pedal. And this knob works in conjunction with the next one, which is the dry knob. And this isn't a blend or a mix control, because the more you dial in, or the more you turn it clockwise, the more clean signal is going to be on your signal path. So it's not like if you put in the middle, it's going to be 50-50 of the compressed and dry signal, but you're going to have a dry signal on top of the compressed one. So your volume is going to go up, and to compensate for the volume difference, you have to use the output control to balance things out as well. Then we have the ratio, which lets you dial in how much compression is going to be applied to the signal that's crossing the threshold that you set at the beginning using the input knob. And it ranges from fairly decent compression to limiting. So all the way counterclockwise is the lowest compression setting, and all the way clockwise is pretty much limiting, brick wall limiting. Then we have attack and release in one knob. And attack and release are some of the settings that are kind of difficult to grasp for some people and are easy to mess up as well. And Origin Effects did a great job at putting both of them into one, because it's pretty easy to set up using this knob here. If you have the attack and release knob all the way clockwise, you have a slow attack and a fast release that is going to give you a snappier, more percussive sound, because you're letting through more of the transient and you're releasing the compression pretty quickly, so that your next note also gets that snappy percussive effect. And if you have it the other way around, all the way counterclockwise, you have a fast attack and a slow release. So the compressor is going to act pretty quickly to grab the note and compress it right away, and then it's going to let go of the compression pretty slowly. So you're going to get a lot of sustain, a more smoother, kind of like spongier style of compression. And of course you can set it somewhere in the middle, and you have a lot of great possibilities depending on your needs. And now the last knob, which is really what sets this compressor apart from the other compact series of Cali76 pedals, is the high pass filter. And this is a great feature to have on bass, because it is not a high pass filter, like it's not gonna cut your low frequencies, but it cuts the low frequencies that the compressor senses. So by turning it clockwise, by rolling up the high pass filter, you're gonna get a more natural low end response, because the compressor is not reacting so much to your low notes, so you're gonna have a more of a natural feeling when playing. It's only gonna react to your mids and treble content. I mean, it's still gonna react to low end, but not as much. So you're gonna get a more from natural playing feeling, and that is definitely a great idea to have on a compressor for bass. And lastly, we have the little jewel here, which lets you know how much compression is going to be applied. When there's no compression happening, it's red, and when it triggers compression, it turns orange. And the more it lights up, the more intense the jewel lights up, the more compression is happening. On top of the pedal, you've got your input jack and your output jack, as well as the power supply socket, and you can run the pedal at 9 or 18 volts. Now, for the demo, I'm gonna run a loop and then twist some knobs so you can hear how each one of the controls or settings, affect the tone. So let's go straight to those samples. I have to say that this is probably one of the coolest pieces of equipment that I own at the moment because I really, 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 really like how it sounds. It definitely provides some character to the tone, even if you're not compressing like a whole lot, even if just a little bit. And of course, depending on your attack and release settings, but it adds some character, some presence to your notes that I find very pleasing. And a lot of sound engineers that I've talked to after getting this have been very, very happy with the compression. They told me, yeah, I noticed that the signal was already compressed and it sounded really good and very present in the mix, so I barely needed to do anything to your tone. So I'm really happy about that. The other thing is that it is easy to dial in. It is very simple to to work around the controls, because some compressors are kind of either you don't have enough control, so you're left with, okay, I'm really smashing my signal together because I can't control how much signal is going to get compressed, or the compression is too much or too little because you're not matching the threshold of the compressor. But this one just gives you plenty of control while still being user-friendly, and I really like that. Especially with the attack and release knob set into one, that's hard to mess up. That takes out a lot of the problems that come with a compressor, and also letting you add the dry signal as well. On top of having the high pass filter, it makes it, it feels like you're not compressing your signal like when you're playing, because some compressors, when you turn them on, it just sounds and feels like you're limited. You don't have the dynamic control that you would like to, because even if you play super soft or super hard, it's gonna get completely squashed, which may be desirable in some situations. But by having the dry and the high pass filter, you can kind of like tame that effect, and you're still gonna have a reduced dynamic range, because that's probably why you want a compressor. There's several uses. I'm gonna do an in-depth video about that, but you're still gonna have a reduced dynamic range, but it's not gonna feel like your signal is gonna being completely squashed. You're gonna be able to play normally, but still front of house or your recordings are gonna have a more even tone across the whole range of the sound spectrum. So that's pretty cool. One thing that I wish was maybe a bit different was that if they added, ratio markers or indicators of the amount of compression that you're dialing in, because most compressors are, they have, or most studio compressors, so to speak, have ratios from like 2:1 or 4:1 or 8:1, 20:1 or whatever, especially the Cali76, which starts already at 4:1, then 8:1, I think 10:1, no, 12:1, and then 20:1. And they had that on the big one, on the TXL and TX Cali76 versions. It would have been cool if they also added it here. They have a very good explanation on the manual how it works. But just knowing, okay, if I have it, the knob at here, it's at 4:1. If I have it here, it's at 8:1. Is a bit helpful, in my opinion, at least. But that's just something minor, because most of the time I have it at the lowest setting, and that's just enough compression for me. And it works. The knob works. You can always use your ears. But I think it would have been nice to have, the markings on how much compression is happening. And the other thing, even though the Jewel works as a gain reduction meter, having some real gain reduction, like, I don't know, LEDs or line, I think that's also always better. It's got, I mean, it's kind of hard. Both things have advantages and disadvantages. Having the Jewel makes you use your ears a bit more, because you have to pay attention to how much compression is being applied, and your feel and response. But you might be over compressing a little bit as well, because sometimes it's hard to tell if it's like really bright or not that bright. You don't know how much the range of compression is going to trigger this. Having a row of LEDs or some scale or some sort of that of scale metering, lets you see, okay, I'm reducing 2 dB or 4 dB or 10 dB when I pluck or when I hold a note or whatever. That can also be helpful to know, oh wait, I'm over compressing at the moment, I'm going to dial it back a little bit. But like I mentioned, both have advantages and disadvantages. Having a more visual representation of gain reduction would be better, in my opinion, for me. But it's definitely not a deal breaker. It just works, and at least you get a gain reduction meter. Some pedal compressors do not get any metering whatsoever, so this definitely works. But yeah, like I mentioned, I wish it was a bit more visual. And other than that, I think it is definitely a very, I mean, the first thing I noticed when I took it out of the package was just how solid it felt. You know, it just looks super solid and fancy. It feels like it was built, you know, to resist a drone strike. It's like you can pass a tank on top of it, it's gonna survive. Probably not, but it definitely feels like it. It is very well built, really solid, and the aluminum case, it feels really good to the touch. It feels like you're holding a valuable piece of equipment, which is kind of nice in my opinion, because even though it is a bit expensive, you know, you don't want your pedals to feel kind of cheap and weak, that if, you know, your pedal board gets a bump, they're gonna break. Then this definitely feels road tour ready. Like I mentioned, it is definitely a great unit. If you can, give it a try, because I'm sure you're not gonna be disappointed if you're looking for a compressor that adds a little bit of extra something to your tone. I hope you guys liked the video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with the content that's coming to the channel. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.